All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, Boker Tov. It's an early morning. Get to jump ahead today. So some of us are still a little jet lag in the 10 o'clock hour. Okay, we're at lesson 6. This is the final lesson of this course. And in this lesson, this is a fantastic lesson. We're going to, today you're going to find out the secrets of Chabad, not only as individuals, but as a movement, as an organization. You'll find out why some of us do what we do without even knowing what we're doing. So, lesson 6, spiritual heights. It's not really only about spiritual heights. It's about all aspects of life. How do we ascend? How do we grow in life in general? And or simply, how to become a better person. How do we become a better person in so many areas? Let's take a look at exercise 6.1, page 144. Imagine that you resolve to grow in your spiritual and Jewish life. Here are 6 activities that will carry you in that direction. Number them in the order that you believe you should follow. Should you begin by studying more Torah to gain a deeper understanding of Judaism? Should you study Jewish history to develop a deeper sense of connection to the Jewish identity? Meditate on God to develop greater feelings, far and deeper relationship with God? Work at inspiring your fellow Jews to grow in their Jewish lives? Do another mitzvah or attend the Shabbat service? Is this in the right order? Just tell me what would be number 1 and what would be the last. What would be the first and what would be the last? What would the first thing be? What would the first thing that you do? They're all equal. Yeah. Nowhere to start, nowhere to end. Okay. So Ecclesiastes was written by King Solomon. There's a lot of great wisdom there. King Solomon said, page 145, "How many understand that the spirit of the human ascends on high, while the spirit of the beast descends to the earth?" The beast. Behema means an animal. What does it mean? It means that something that's innate in the human being. What distinguishes a human from an animal or any other creatures is that the human being is always looking up. We walk on 2 feet. 2 feet, we're always looking up. The animals, each one have whatever they are, but whatever they are, that's what they're going to be. There's no growing or aspirations for anything greater than who they are, and they're looking down. They're always looking down. So we're constantly grappling with the question of how to become a better person, or at least we should be. Whatever that means for each individual. A better wife, a better husband, a better parent, son, daughter, teacher, a better Jew, a better human being. Each of us have to, a better businessman. Whatever it is, we have to be growing somewhere. A better artist, right? We have to always be growing somewhere. So that's why there's thousands of self-help books that are published every year. And they are there to tell us how we should become better people. There's symposiums and seminars on the subject, and there's all types of gurus and pundits and celebrities and coaches that are all out there telling people what they should do to help them grow. Then there's also the rabbis, and that's why you come to the rabbis. Today we're going to take the Rebbe's unique, revolutionary approach, just as we've done till now, to this fundamental human quest. How is it What is the advice that he's given to countless individuals? The distinct approach to challenges, to overcome them, and to become better. Now, this revolutionary approach, perhaps you could say in the classical Rebbe's way, by him there's no such thing as new. Everything comes from Torah, everything comes from other sources. And it's just a matter of finding it and where Torah brings this out. He had an emphasis that he placed on this approach and the extent that he applied it, this idea. He took one word that was found somewhere, one verse, and saying how, we have to put a focus on that. But let's first back up a little bit. When you want to become a better person, okay, so the Rebbe has a revolutionary approach to the human quest to improve. When you want to become a better person, let's first take a look at the classic approach. What you'll typically hear in these seminars and from these gurus and for all these kind of things, usually it will be two aspects or two approaches how to go about this. The first approach will be what we'll call bottom up, and this is true with the Torah approach as well. Bottom up means that you got to climb your mountain, progression. And King David says this in Psalms. This is not a new thing. King David says in Psalms, "Who shall ascend the mountain of God, and who shall stand in his holy place? One who has clean hands, a pure heart, who has not borne my soul into vanity, and has not sworn deceitfully." So what's he saying? Life is about climbing a mountain. Who shall climb the mountain? It's a mountain that God gave us. That's climbing a mountain. Anybody here ever mountain climbed? Anyone? Yes? Where would you mountain climb? All over. All right. And Everest. I actually saw Mount Everest from afar. That was as close as I got. When it comes to climbing a mountain, so no one can do it overnight. You can't just decide I'm going to get there and climb it. I found there's over here there's a lake. It's called Lake Meona, and they have a little park there. It's not official. It's not owned by the villages. It's owned by the county or whatever. And they have a park there that they put. And I took my kids there. They wanted monkey bars, and they have there actually adult monkey bars. So I was with my Morty. He couldn't even get up there. Even if I was to lift him up, I myself couldn't reach it. I guess it was meant for real serious climbers. But even to do something basic, you need the stamina, you need the skill, you need exercise, training, outfitting, etc. You got to prepare yourself. You got to work on it. So it's not going to happen unless you go through the steps, the progression. That's what it means, climbing your mountain. And the same thing, climbing the mountain of God. This approach says that you have to go through the steps. Progression. Progression means I got to work on myself. That's what King David says. Who has clean hands and a pure heart, meaning you got to clean yourself. You have to get rid of your dishonest actions, your immoral desires. He says, play with a deceitful soul and vanity. Right? You got to get rid of these things, and then you got to start working your way up. That's typically the way most people see that you have to become a better Jew, a better person. As it says in Psalms, Sur me'ra v'aseh tov, turn away from evil and do good. B'akei shalom v'rafeo, seek peace and pursue it. So there's steps here. You got to begin by sur me'ra. You have to first turn away from evil, and then do good. We need to cleanse our hands, purify our hearts, and only then we ascend the mountain of God. And this is called the bottom up approach. And this is typically if you were to go to any rabbi or guru, they'll say, here's the steps, start working your way, right? Step 1, 2, 3, start getting there. Then there is also what we call an inside out approach, which is a similar concept, but this is interpersonal improvements, which means that you have a progression. Before you start working with other people, you have to work on yourself first. You have to become a better person. K'shayt atzmecha, the Talmud says in text number 4. Talmud says in Sanhedrin, beautify yourself and then beautify others. You got to work on yourself first. If you want to have a positive impact on others, if you want to have a positive impact on the world, I got to first take care of myself. I have to be on that level. I have to, if I want to make the community better, the society as a whole better, so I have to make myself a better person. The famous Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kutsk, known as the Kutzker Rebbe, you've heard of him? He would say, when I was younger, I thought I could change the world. Then I decided that I would work on changing my city. Then I thought maybe I could just change my family. Then I realized I needed to try and change myself, but by the time I thought that it was already too late to change my city and my town. If I would have started by changing myself, I could have changed my family, I could have changed my city, etc. Now, the truth to be told, Rabbi Mendel of Kutsk was not a simple man. He was a person who impacted tens of thousands of Hasidim that he had, so he wasn't someone that only changed himself. He was someone that changed thousands. They had thousands of followers. But, it's imagine you go to a doctor and you have your annual checkup, and the doctor tells you got to exercise daily, and you got to quit smoking, you got to quit drinking. And in the meantime, you walk in there, and he's 500 pounds, and he's smoking in front of you. You'll say, I'll go find another doctor, right? This is not working for me. What's the famous thing that how many of us have flown on airplanes? What do they always say? Very good. Put your mask on before helping others. I actually question if that's the best thing to do. If you're actually in an emergency situation, if you have a little kid, maybe you should put the mask on the little kid quickly and then go to yourself. But I don't know. But anyway, that's what they tell you to do. So this is the gist of the inside out. You got to fix yourself first. You got to work on yourself. And this is the classic approach. Classic approach, as we said, it's also a Torah approach. There are many Torah versions of this. As we read about just before, the verse from King David: turn away from evil, do good, seek peace, and pursue it. So it's a step process, step-by-step process. First, turn away from evil, then do good, then seek peace and pursue it. This is the way the typical what approach is. And this is the way it works in our inner world as well. We have to be refined and elevated, and then we can work to improve others in the world around us. Now, this is true, but as I said, the Rebbe's approach is one that is, in order to positively impact others, you must first improve yourself. The Rebbe's approach is one that is revolutionary, but one that he mostly based on a letter that was written by the Rebbe Maharash, who was the fourth Chabad Rebbe. And he would say like this. I'll read it first in Yiddish and I'll translate it. Text number 5. Die Welt sorgt, als me kennet arunter darf men arriber. Und ich halt, als me darf lechatchila arriber. The world advises on facing an obstacle. If you cannot go under it, you must leap over it. I maintain, leap first, jump first. So, we're not here talking about a jumping challenge. What's it called? In Ocala, they have the horse racing, right? They have to jump over,
Steeples.
steeples, right? Thank you. Thank you for the word. So if you can't go over it, classic approach is can't go over it. You can't go under it, then go over it. But I say, leap first. Just go straight ahead, straight forward. Is this a dangerous approach?
Yeah, you don't know what's on the other side.
You don't know what's on the other side.
Either way, though, you don't know what's on the other side. If you go under, you don't know. If you go over, you don't know.
So,
Take your chance.
what does this mean practically, and why is this the approach that he took? So, there's an adage in the Talmud, "Chatoifa achal, chatoifa shsi," which means it's like a banquet: grab and eat, grab and drink. Okay, imagine you're invited to a Chabad Kiddush. Okay. We'll give a different example.
Oh, no, that's a good example.
You're invited to a very, but the point over here, you're invited to a real fancy party. Let's say, the Met Gala.
Let's say bar mitzvah.
A bar mitzvah. And you have, it's a really nice event, and you have, the protocols in place. You have to sit down, and you have your place, food placed in front of you, and the waiters come in and they're serving, and everybody has their place. And then you have the speeches, and you got to take your time, and everything has an order and a place, and you gotta work according to the system. And then it's just about closing time, and everything is over. Doors are about to close, and then you see all this extra food on the table, and the chef comes out and says, "I got nothing to do with this. Take whatever you want." Sounds familiar?
Sounds like appetizers at a bar mitzvah.
Right? Exactly. Take whatever you want, guys. Take some home, and you go and you grab. So this is the idea: grab and eat, grab and drink. In other words, why specifically now? Why are we comparing it to this? So you have in a spiritual progression of God's overall plan, if you will, God's party that He made for us, right, in this world. So you have the many thousands of years that they had to work on themselves, to take time, to do things according to order. But then it comes the end of time. Mashiach is almost here, and this is our last few minutes of Galus, and we have to get in as many mitzvahs as we can during this time. So we got to grab whatever we can during this time. And so it's no more following the protocol. It's a race against the clock. The last moments before redemption, when you go straight for the prize. So therefore, instead of a bottom-up process, the Rebbe advocated that we approach things from the top down. And instead of an inside-out progression, he insisted that we work from the outside in. So let's give an example. We'll call it a case study. Here's an excerpt of a letter that the Rebbe wrote in 1959. This was probably maybe a shliach, an emissary that the Rebbe had recently sent out with a certain mission or whatever it was. Maybe it was a teacher or whatever. And it says, text 7a, you ask me, how can I involve myself in disseminating the teachings, directive, and practices of Chabad to others when I have not yet fulfilled the dictum, beautify yourself and then beautify others, which we quoted earlier. I have two responses to your quandary. And we're first going to read the first one. Firstly, it's not acceptable to withhold these teachings from individuals in your surroundings simply because you are not the way you should be. After all, your personal deficiency is not their fault. So the first thing he's saying, he's not denying that the guy's not perfect, or it could be a woman, I don't know who it is. He's not saying, no, you're perfect. He's saying, no, I understand you're not perfect. I understand the dictum that you have to first beautify yourself before beautifying others. I get that. But, he says, there are someone that needs something from you. You are needed. Again, this goes back to what we talked about from the very beginning of the lesson of our class. From the very first lesson, which was, ask not what you need, but ask what you are needed for. Remember that? So, and he says a great line. He says, your deficiency is not their fault, right? Is it their fault that you're not perfect? So therefore they have to lose out? So the teacher's needs a good teacher as the master of subject in order to teach it properly. But when your focus is the student's needs, the student needs to learn. So teach something. You know, the Rebbe always used to say a line. He said, if you know an aleph, then teach an aleph. Right? The aleph is the first letter of the alphabet. If you know a base, teach a base. If that's what you know, then teach that. So, you know, one way to look at it is say, I don't know. I want to teach something. I want to be able to share it, but I don't know perfectly. I'm not a master in the subject. Maybe I have to master it more. Or you could say, I'm already committed to teaching the class. Let me do this. In other words, to put it another way, it's not about what's the answer to the question. It's about how are we framing the question in the first place. It's not how do I become a better teacher. It's what do the students need right now? What can I get to the students? If you're saying how do I become a better teacher, you may be working on that for the rest of your life. But if you're saying what am I needed for right now, then that's a different story. You know, I have to give a confession that sometimes I advertise a class and not always do I have that class fully prepared. Sometimes I even have other friends of mine, you know, rabbis in other cities, and they say, "Oh, I see you're advertising this class. Can you send me your notes for it?" I say, I don't know. But in a lot of usually the way it is, you know, I say, listen, you know, people have been asking me about this and this subject, and I think it's something I should really teach on. And you know, obviously I prepare it before, but not necessarily when that subject is put out, am I you know, fully prepared for it at that time. So you know, so this is what people are asking about. This is what people have to know. So I'm going to teach a class on this. I'll prepare it. I'll get it together. But right now, all I know is that I'm teaching a class on this subject. So the point is that we have to see that God has presented me with this goal, with this thing. So certainly He's empowering us to achieve it and giving us that ability. And then there's the second point, text 7b. Secondly, when you set the goal to beautify yourself, you must seek and exploit all possible methods and means of increasing your success. Now, when you are acutely aware that you will soon face numerous individuals and you will have to discuss important topics with them, that awareness will itself most certainly assist you in the battle for self-improvement and make your victory far quicker and easier. So he's saying not only you got to look at what you got to do. Now, also he's saying the second point. Once you know that this is what you're doing, that is already going to help you to go to the next point, to do it properly and master it properly. Right? You're a teacher, right? You agree with that?
Absolutely.
So, we have to, when we're, if our whole goal in life is just to make myself better, you're never going to get there. But if you put yourself in a position that you say, now I have to do something to become better, then you automatically will. This video is a fantastic story. It just shows there's just so much about this next video that we're going to see. Actually, I may give a pause in the middle to take a little thought on this video.
Rabbi Shulam Weiss and his wife Eileen were married in 1957. 3 days before their wedding, they had a private audience with the Rebbe.
So I gave the Rebbe the title, and the Rebbe looked at it, read it, and then he looked up, and he said to us, "Is it Yiddish?" So I said, "Yeah, I speak Yiddish." And he said Yiddish, and my Kala, she said to the Rebbe, "I understand Yiddish, but I don't speak it that well. I don't express myself that well in Yiddish." So the Rebbe said, "All right, when I speak to the Chassan, I'll speak in Yiddish, and when I speak to the Kala, I'll speak in English." And that's what he did. So maybe a few seconds goes by, and all of a sudden, my wife starts to cry. And she looks at the Rebbe, and she says to him, "Can the Rebbe please ask the Chassan to leave the room? I want to speak to the Rebbe in private." Well, I was in shock. I think the Rebbe was also in shock. And the Rebbe gave me a look, and I just backed out and walked out of the room. As I came out into the hallway, a girl came running over and said, "Where's the Kala?" I said, "She's still inside." She said, No, you can't do that. We don't do it that way." I said, "Well, that's the way it is. What am I going to do?" And maybe about a good 20 minutes goes by that my wife is inside with the Rebbe talking. And then she finishes, and she opens the door, and she says, "The Rebbe said you should come back in." So I come back in, and I forget exactly how we were talking, but we more or less, the Chiddush was ending at that point. And we started backing to the door, and the Rebbe got up from behind his desk, and he walked us to the door. And the two Shainim were waiting outside. My wife went on her way, and I went my way. And the next time I saw my wife was under the chuppah. And after the chuppah, we of course went into the yichud room. And as soon as we went into the yichud room, the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "What did you talk to the Rebbe about for 20 minutes?" So my wife said, "Well, I hope you're not upset. I told the Rebbe I want to call the wedding off." This was, remember, Thursday night, we're getting married Sunday. And the Rebbe said, "Why do you want to call off the wedding?" So I said to the Rebbe, "Because I have a terrible temper. I have no patience, and I lose my temper very easily. And until now, there's something, a Chassan Kala, he doesn't see everything, because, but once we're married, it won't take long, he's going to realize he made a big mistake. He married a wrong woman, he married a shrew, and we'll probably end up in divorce. So I've been thinking about it," she said, "and I decided I would rather not get married at all than get married and get divorced."
Let's say, I want to pause here. What would you say? What would you say if that was your meeting? Wrong? Okay, that's not an answer.
What would I
Wrong.
say? If I was the Rebbe,
Well, yeah. What would you respond to her?
if you're not sure, then you shouldn't proceed at this.
That you should not proceed at this point. Okay. Obviously, they did get married, so we know that. Yeah.
Who's giving the advice?
She's asking the Rebbe for advice. She's telling the Rebbe, I don't want to get married because I'm afraid because of my temper I'll immediately get divorced. I'm saying if somebody asked you that question, what would your response be? What would your response be? Tell them to work on yourself. Okay. But I obviously told them to get married because they're married. Yeah. But, huh?
He said to learn. He said to go to the marriage, because obviously there's something, and you need to
Work it out.
You need to work at it. You need to, it's a learning experience. You have to
Okay.
learn.
Well, obviously it's easy to learn. You can't just change yourself you can't just change yourself by learning.
But you said yourself.
Okay.
Patience.
Use a marriage as a growth opportunity. So, I mean, it's very easy to say these things. It's very easy to say these things, but you're talking about a girl who's afraid to get married because she knows she has a deficiency. The response that the Rebbe gave was fascinating, and it brings out in a very, very deep sense how sometimes the most simplistic things could only come by really having a deep, deep understanding of life and of people and of situations. Let's see.
I said to what the Rebbe said. She said, the Rebbe smiled. And the Rebbe said to me, in English, the Rebbe said to me, I'm going to tell you something. The Rebbe is going to bless you with many children. And the children will teach you patience. So the children are for you to call off the wedding. And until you start having the children, you should do volunteer work in the hospital, preferably with children in the hospital. And that will also help you become patient with people. And your temper will not be a problem.
You know, this kind of reminds me also what we talked about last week, where, you know, that a lot of people, when they have issues, the way they go about it is to constantly delve on the issue and keep working on, keep working on the issue and constantly trying to see how can I keep punching at that. And Rebbe says you'll get beyond that, but you got to allow yourself to look past where you are, and you'll be able to become better by that. Okay, now we're continuing on. So, the next example, 1957, was a talk that the Rebbe gave when it came to charity. The idea of it's imperative to help others in aid toward our self-improvement. Because talk about the outside-in study. Because we said most people say you got to start with the inside out. So it says like this. Text 8. A Hasidic discourse states that charity should be given in an infinite manner. This was the first time I encountered such terminology applied to giving charity. The Rebbe is saying about himself, this is the first time I see this concept of infinite charity. What does it mean? As I studied the discourse, I asked myself how it might be possible to give charity in an infinite manner. After all, charity entails giving money or physical resources with monetary value. How can any physical entity possibly be infinite? Now, Judaism delineates several standards of charitable giving. According to the typical standard of charity, we donate 1/10 of our earnings. That is considered the proper minimum margin. Then there is the standard of 1/5, which is considered a generous margin of charity. Finally, there's a standard of charity referred to as charity by judgment, whereby we judge ourselves honestly to determine the amount we require to sustain our own existence, so that we can donate everything beyond that amount to charity. According to the latter standard, our charity is not defined by a specific percentage. It is neither a 10th nor a 5th, nor even a specific figure greater than a 5th. Nevertheless, the final analysis, even such giving has a limit. For even if we were to give away all that we possess, it would still add up to a quantifiable sum. Rather, there's an entirely different approach to giving charity, whereby we would not consider ourselves at all. Instead, as soon as we encounter someone in need, our response is to immediately resolve that need, however large it may be, without considering whether we own that amount or not. In other words, the degree to which we feel the pain of our fellow and relate to their need is infinite, unequivocal, and unconstrained, so that there is no room for any calculations whatsoever regarding our personal means. We have but one consideration. We must provide the needy individual with the amount they require. If we do not have the sum ourselves, we will put every effort in obtaining it. When we truly make this resolve, God will certainly assist us in fulfilling this mitzvah. So what he's saying is, you can't say infinite when it comes to something finite. He's saying infinite means that there's a different approach. The approach is not what could I give? What's my capability? The approach is what is needed. And whatever is needed, that's what's going to be given. So most the typical approach for charity is on me. What am I able to give? I have a bank account. This is what I have in my bank account. This is the percentage that could be given. This is my taxes that will be taken off. And so the rest, this is the amount of charity I'm able to give. That's the giver focus. The receiver focus means charity is limitless. It's to find what is required to help the person in need, regardless of what my capabilities are. So when we focus on the recipient, it's not about me, it's not about my feelings, it's not about my obligations. That's all irrelevant. It's about giving what has to be given at this time. Let's read another video here.
Rabbi Moshe Tzur is the founder and administrator of a number of educational and charitable institutions in Jerusalem. In 1969, he was serving in the Israeli Air Force.
We was in Birkat Gafa without any good conditions and good food. One day stopped trailers and gave to each one of us a package. It's a Chag Purim Sameach from the Rebbe Milubavitch. And we always wonder who is the Rebbe. And it was like a Fata Morgana in the middle of the desert to receive a piece of candy and regarding from somebody that really care for you. And I was very impressed. In 1971, in the Milchemet HaHatashah, one day Chabad people asked us to put in tefillin. But at that time, you don't know if it's Monday or Tuesday or Shabbat, and all of a sudden somebody asked you to put tefillin. So when I started to say Kriyat Shema, I tried to say it, Shema, Israel, and I knew it, so I said it like fluently, and then I got crying because it was very emotional for me. And since that days, I got back to my religions. When I come to Chicago, I got to know Rabbi Daniel Moskovich, he should rest in peace. I become very close to Lubavitch community and to Chabad. And he used to come to my warehouse every Friday in the morning. And one time they honored me in some dinner that the Chabad house did. And I was twice in Yahdut with the Rebbe. And one time he asked me what I'm doing, and I had the idea to be helping some more Jewish community. And he was telling us how is important the mitzvah of Ve'ahavta le'recha kamocha, to love the others just like you love yourself. And the Rebbe was like asking a question, why is the heart of the person, of the human being, is in the left side? Because in Judaism, the right is the chesed. If it's so important, why Hashem didn't make the human being create that the heart will be on the right side and not in the left side? So the Rebbe, he should rest in peace. He said that when a Jew look at the other, he has to know that the heart is for the others. Because when I look at you, your heart is in my right hand, and my heart is in your right side. So when the heart is over the other, then you really make the mitzvah of Ve'ahavta le'recha kamocha. Because the heart is not for you, the heart is always for the others. Since then, thank God, I came back to Israel, and I established 2 important yeshivot and 4 kolenim. And I think that the Rebbe definitely did a very important message in me and in my mission as a Jew. He changed all my perspective about life.
So that's a great lesson you can always take with you. If you want to ever share an idea with someone, you share that idea about the heart, right? The heart being on the left side, because that's the other person's right side. So this will take us to the next aspect, which is how to run a Jewish organization. Many people marveled at what the Rebbe's emissaries have done and accomplished throughout the world, often working on very limited resources. I can tell you, very limited resources. And how is it possible that we have achievements that are surpassed well-established and well-funded institutions? And I think it's pretty safe to say today Chabad is the largest Jewish organization worldwide. It's really more of a movement than an organization. And this can be attributed to the Rebbe's outside-in approach, which obviously had inspired his followers to take that as well. An example of this can be found in a letter that was written in 1951 to the yeshiva, the Chabad yeshiva in Montreal. At that time, there were not a lot of Chabad institutions. This was one of the largest Chabad institutions at the time, outside of New York. And it says, in regards to the discussion at your meeting concerning the deficit of the yeshiva in the yeshiva's budget, I've already addressed this in my earlier conversation with you here in New York. Up until now, you tried to run things in a limited way, i.e. to direct your spending in accordance with your income. You should now try the opposite approach, that is to endeavor to increase your income in accordance with the needed expenses. This is in accordance with the saying of the Rebbe Maharash, which is given over by my father-in-law, the Rebbe, in the name of his father. The world advises that if you cannot go under an obstacle, you must leap over it. I maintain leap first with the proper determination. So here we see another application, the outside-in approach that the Rebbe, you could say, very vigorously advocated. And that is that when it comes to running an institution, again, it's a different approach to take. It's not, let's see how much we could raise, and that's how much good we'll do, which is the way most institutions, most charitable organizations work. We're going to try and raise as much as we can, and that's what we'll do. That's the conventional bottom-up approach. But the Rebbe rejected this approach. And like he said, charity is limitless when you're focusing on the person in need. And the same thing is true about having a Chabad house or having any institution that is there to do good, to do others, to help with others, to make a positive impact on people's lives, a school, whatever it may be. That you have to, instead of being a income-centered, which means the organization's activity is based on available funds, we have to have our fundraising goals that are set based on what the organization needs to accomplish. In the video before, he mentioned that he was very close with Rabbi Daniel Moskowitz, who was the Chabad Shliach to Chicago. I was also very close with him because I lived in Chicago, I grew up, and my parents are very close with him. He passed away at a very young age. And, you know, I remember there was, recently my father had given me some old documents that he had sitting in his file or whatever, and among them there was meetings of notes of a meeting that they had. This was in the 1980 something, and basically it said the conclusion of the meeting was with him, with Rabbi Moskowitz, and with one or two other you know, and people that had an influence on the community. What are they going to do about Jewish education? And the and the decision of the meeting was that they're going to go and knock on doors where there were a lot of newly immigrated Russians at the time who came to the city. They would knock on the doors and offer them free tuition if they enlist their kids in a Jewish school. And that's what they did. And it wasn't any, I'm more important than doing this. This was the, men even with white beards or younger guys. You're not talking about a bunch of students. This was married men, respectful individuals, and this is what they did. They literally went door to door, knocking on doors for newly immigrated, Russian kids that just came, and they said, if you enroll in a Jewish school, we'll give you free tuition. They had no way of paying for this tuition. He even put an ad in the newspaper that said, I think it was either for school or camp, that said, free tuition for any kid that comes. And the Rebbe told him that's a very good thing. He really liked that. So, you say, how are we going to pay for it? Well, I don't know, but all I know is that these kids have to get in a Jewish school, and a lot of kids ended up in a Jewish school, and today they have children or grandchildren, that are keeping the faith because someone knocked on their door, and when they just arrived in America, when they knew nothing, and said, "Here, I'm going to put you in a Jewish school." So that's what reminded me before with seeing his influence. So, unqualified teacher. That's the outside-in case study. The imperative is to help others will, in turn, aid us in our own self-improvement. Then we have the infinite charity, which is charity is limitless when focusing on a person in need. Reverse budget, determine what you need to accomplish, set the fundraising targets accordingly. Okay. Next. The Rebbe once said about his father-in-law. He said that he was always in debt. He said he would always go in debt for anything that had to get done. He would pay back his debts. He found ways to pay back his debts, and he would go in debt again, because it was the only way to keep the institutions going. Today the Jewish world has a lot more funding than they did once upon a time. But, still, we got to make sure it's channeled in the right places. Okay, next. First, do good. The approach to challenge from bottom up, we talked about the mountain climbing approach. So we talked about the inside-out approach, the outside-in approach. And this is also regarding the mountain climber. When it comes to the mountain climber, we have a certain place that we got to go. We have to go up the mountain. So the first way that we said, I want to climb a mountain. So let me see how much I could do. Let me climb a small mountain. Then I'll go up a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. I'll keep working, and we'll see how high I could go, how great of a goal I can reach. The top-down approach says, this is my goal. This is where I got to get. I got to get to the top of that mountain right there. Now I got to get there. The question is, I just got to figure out how to make that happen. In other words, we're not saying to ignore the reality that I'm completely out of shape, but it's not about taking a leap to somewhere that's completely insensible. It's a different approach to the mindset. The mindset says, not let me see how far I can get. Instead, where do I have to get? That's the mountain that I have to reach. Now I got to figure out how to get there. So following the bottom approach, sur meira aseh tov. First we have to steer away from evil, then do good, as we said. The top mountain says, in the other order, says you have to begin. First do good. Aseh tov. First do good. Instead of worrying about your circumstances, instead of worrying about where you are at, worry about what needs to get done. So instead of surmei, first moving away from bad, asay tov, start with the good. Do something that's getting you to where you have to go. We find this idea, Passover's coming up. I know, we don't want to think about it, but it's coming up nevertheless. So we have the plagues. You have the 10 plagues. So the Rebbe once analyzed the first two plagues that we have, that we had in Pharaoh. In every generation, person has to see themselves as they left Egypt, right? B'chol dar vadar, you have to see yourself like you left Egypt. So what were the two plagues? The first plague was what? Blood. But what was blood? It was that you're turning what into blood? Water. What's the idea of turning water into blood? Water is cold and wet. You turn into blood means that blood represents life, right? Something that's cold, you're turning it into life and warmth. So you're taking the fervor of blood, which replaces the coldness and apathy towards that which is unholy. You bring the passion, if you will, of the holiness. And then the second thing is what? You have to let the warmth replace the apathy. And the second thing is taking frogs. Frogs come out of water. They're also the cold frogs. And what are you doing? Feeding them. You got to take a jump with them. And then you call off your unholy passion with them by taking that jump. You take a look at all the great successful people in life. Who was the first one to make a 5-mile run when they said it was impossible to run that long? Or the first flight, the first electric car. These are people who never said, let me try and get step by step. They said, this is where I got to go, and we just need to find a way to get there. Text number 10. All the narratives included in the Torah serve as directives and guidance for all generations to come. Similarly, the Torah's account with the plague of blood representing warmth and passion for doing good, preceding the plague of frogs representing the dispassion for negative matters, directs us to follow suit. We must focus on doing good right from the start. The Rebbe Maharash said, the world advises, again this is the same quote, when facing an obstacle, if you cannot go under it, you must leap over it. I maintain leap first. Consequently, we also need this approach of leaping over in the sense of immediately working to reveal an abundance of light that will consequently, on its own, dispel the darkness. So instead of worrying about the logical order of self-betterment, just go ahead and start doing a mitzvah. Flood your life with warmth, with holiness. That's the first step you got to do. First, do the action. Asay tov. Start with the doing good. And what's the line of Nike? Just do it, right? Just do it. There it is. The line of Nike. Just do it. Just do a mitzvah. And now you see another one of Chabad's secrets. Action first. Right? That's one of Chabad's secrets. Action first. The Jewish outreach. Many people have tried to mimic Chabad's outreach in different ways. And as you remember, we discussed this. The problem is that they're taking an approach that's very different. Because their approach says that I want to bring you to be X, Y, Z, and so I need to take you step by step in that order. Let me help you become a better person. A, B, C, taking that step by step. The Rebbe's approach is, no, do the action first. Get there first. Text 11. We could argue that in order for a Jew to begin performing mitzvot and drawing closer to God, they need to first learn about Judaism and about the laws and the mitzvot of the Torah. They especially need to learn about God, His relationship with the world in general, and His special relationship with the Jewish people. They also need to understand the significance of the mitzvot in general and of each specific mitzvah. In other words, we could argue that in order to do mitzvot a person requires a proper introduction and training, comprehensive knowledge, etc. Only once that has been achieved, it is possible to proceed with observing the mitzvot in the proper way as befits the commandments of God. To counter this argument, the Torah shares the story of Abraham. God told Abraham, "Go from your land." At this point in the narrative, the Torah has not informed us about all of Abraham's virtues and achievements. And that is precisely the lesson for us. The very foundation and starting point of Abraham's coming close to God is when God told Abraham, "Go." Begins with an action. He had to do something to carry out the divine command in actuality. What's he saying? He's saying, learn from Abraham. Abraham, how old was he when we first are introducing the Torah to him? Anyone know how old he was? 75 years old. When at first, Vayomer Hashem el Avram lach, God said to Abraham, go. Abraham has a long history before that. The Medrash recounts the history of how he began to explore God. He was thrown into a furnace. He was fighting an entire world with his ideas of monotheism. But the Torah says, that's not the Abraham that I want you to know. Not that you shouldn't know it, but that's not the Abraham that the Torah's message to us is. Torah's message to us is the Abraham that when God said, Lech lecha, go, he went forward. He made that step forward. Because everything else was Abraham working his way in his own understanding, step by step, to doing each level, growing more and more. When it came to this point, God's saying, now you do the action, you got to do the jump forward. And so this is the idea of, instead of climbing the mountain step by step, we say, go straight to where you got to go. Go straight to doing the mitzvah. Now, there's a lot of people that think that in Chabad we do that because it's better marketing. I've actually heard this from professional marketers, and they said Chabad are the best marketers because they go to you and they say immediately you got to go and do a mitzvah right away. It's true, it does work for marketing, don't get me wrong, but that has nothing to do with the philosophy or the ideology or why we do this at all. It's because of this idea, which is, as a Jew, the Rebbe taught us, as a Jew, go straight to the heart, go straight to where you are. This is who you are. The Jew is the one that does the action that gets it done. We'll see this with an interesting recount from Mr. Gordon Zacks. He was very active in the UJA, big philanthropist, and he far from a Chabad chassid or too much involved with Chabad's activity. But as we'll see, he had an interesting conversation with the Rebbe.
In 1969, Mr. Gordon Zacks was chairman of the UJA's Young Leadership Cabinet. Shortly after delivering a keynote address to 3,000 communal leaders from across the U.S. and Canada, he was informed that the Rebbe wished to meet with him.
I'm escorted into the Rebbe's study. And I'll never forget it if I live to be 100. This man, there are books piled all the way to the ceiling, all around the office. He stands up. He has these penetrating blue eyes, crystal clear eyes. His skin is almost translucent. I mean, not a wrinkle. Just an incredible, peaceful, penetrating look in his eye. He said, Mr. Zacks, I have read your speech. It is clear to me that you have taken good care of your mind. I can look at you, and it's clear to me that you've taken good care of your body. What are you doing for your soul, Mr. Zacks? That was the opening to the conversation, which lasted an hour and a half. So he says, do you believe in revelation? I said, I believe in God, but I'm not sure I believe in revelation. I believe that the Bible was inspired by God. but I haven't yet accepted the fact that it's word for word written by God. Now listen to this. This is when it really gets amazing. He says, Mr. Zaks, your problem is you're trying to think yourself to God. You can't think yourself to God. You have to experience the why, the how of being Jewish. And in the living of a Jewish lifestyle, you will discover God. He's within you. But you're trying to connect to Him through your head. You have to connect to Him through your heart. And you can't get there through your head. You got to get there through experience. He says, let me send a member of my community to live with you for a year and teach you how to be Jewish. If at the end of the year you find God in your soul, in your heart, you have achieved the greatest gift you will ever have in life. You've got to release yourself from this mental approach to life and God and come with me in this journey of the heart.
At the end of the story, he turned down the offer. I will say that. There's more to the story. As you can see, he obviously was not a very religious Jew in that sense, but he was very involved with Jewish organizations. The Rebbe very much during his talk encouraged him, especially with his influence in the UJA, to give funds to Jewish education. Whatever is a Jewish education. And the Rebbe did this with a lot of individuals that he met with that were involved with these type of organizations. Because, let's face it, they give money to a lot of things that don't help Jewish causes in any ways, without getting into details. But, he said, people are giving you funds for Jewish causes, fund Jewish education, they need the money. Anyway, so he did help out with that, and what's interesting is 18 years later, this was in 1970 something, 18 years later, 1988, the Rebbe's wife had passed away, and he went to share condolences, and the way he says the story, he says, I didn't tell anyone I was coming, right? There was no one that gave him special escort to let him know. No one knew he was coming. So I went with my daughter. His daughter had ended up becoming religious. And he said, I went with my daughter. We waited an hour and a half in line. I came to the Rebbe, and he said the Rebbe immediately recognized who I am. And then he said the Rebbe continued on the conversation, saying, so what have you been doing about Jewish education? And he was completely shocked and said, how? So all that he blurted out, he said, you're amazing. So the Rebbe retorts back to him and says, what's it going to help Jewish education if I'm amazing? He said, the bottom line is, what are we doing about it? So again, it was a great story. But so if we go back to the first exercise that we had, repeating this opening. So all these things are important. Study more Torah, study Jewish history, meditate on God, work on inspiring your fellow Jews, do another mitzvah, attend Shabbat services. But the idea that doing another mitzvah has to be the first thing, has to be the first step. The first step needs to be the action. And then you're making that leap forward. And then we could work on becoming a better person. We could work on ourselves being stronger, being better. It doesn't mean that you have to ignore that stuff. But this is what the Rebbe is saying. How to leap? He says, you have to focus on the needs of others. You have to work to inspire others to grow in their Jewish lives. But these steps need to take second place. The first thing is you have to make you have to make that leap forward. And what does it mean, leap forward? It means don't deliberate and think and finding the right opportunity. When will I be able to do that mitzvah? When will I be able to put on tefillin? And by the way, David, the tefillin here was yours donating to the shul. So thank you, David. Donated a pair of tefillin to the shul for anybody that would want to put on tefillin. That it's always available. We also had Ira donated a pair as well, which is now being used by someone. So you know, this is the idea. You know, when someone comes to me and says, you know, we have to do this, we have to do this mitzvah, we have to do this program. The first thing is it's got to get done. Second thing is, how are we going to pay for it? And lots of times we don't know how that's going to happen, but we hope that it works out somehow. But basically what we're saying is we got to rewrite the playbook over here. The Rebbe's advice is everything that we're working to strive to accomplish. So if it's going to be the focus on myself, then it's always going to be a limit. How much can I do? How much can I accomplish? What are my capabilities? It says we got to look at what's got to get done. What's needed at this point. Take it from the bottom up. There's room for anxiety, relationships, issues. The Rebbe's approach is don't take it bottom up. Take it up down. Go at the top. And this is true again with our spiritual relationship, our relationship with God. If we start with ourselves saying, "How do I become a better Jew? Let me try and study more. Let me try and learn more. Let me try and focus more on what I can do." You know, there are some Jewish outreach organizations where there could be someone that's been going there for a year or 2 years. Have been studying every day, going and studying, and never yet put on tefillin. And you know, the Rebbe clearly was no. You got to make that move first. And when we take this approach, beginning from the outside in and from the top down, then it's an entirely different experience. It doesn't mean that you don't work on yourself, but the self-development is a whole different way. The self-development is with a different approach. It's a much stronger way. It's a much more powerful way because we already are there. Now I have to become better and work even more to the next step. You know, I have a thing that I do here. Some of you experienced it, where when I have some free time, I go to members of the community and I knock on their door. You know, and it may be before a holiday or before Shabbos or something, you know, but maybe just the middle of the week with some chicken soup or whatever. And, you know, just knocking on their door, saying hello or whatever. And an individual was not happy about this and had told me that, you know, Rabbi, I really think that you shouldn't be doing that, and it's not something that, you know, you should make sure to call before, to make a meeting before, to schedule before. She says, you know, I guess this is Chabad style, but you know, she didn't agree with it. Well, yeah, that is what it is. You know, obviously, it's good to make a meeting, but those meetings are not always going to be scheduled. So sometimes you just got to do the knock on the door. And you know, she stayed by her view and I stayed by my view, but that's it. But anyway, this is the approach that we have in life. You have the bottom-up approach. The Rebbe says you got to take it top down. You got to first start with the mission and work your way. And then you have the inside-out approach. The Rebbe says again, outside in. Start working with others. Do everything that you can. Don't let yourself get in the way of what somebody else needs at this point. And with this, we conclude this specific lesson. And now we're going to take a look in general at what we've accomplished with this course. If you could if you could look, we're still on this page here. We're going still forward. If you could look at what we've been discussing here for the past 6 weeks, with a few breaks in the middle, but still 6 weeks, we could put it into these 2 words: finding meaning. We talked about finding meaning in your work life, family, home, your physical health, emotional well-being, life challenges, self-improvement. What are some common threads? What are some words? Just give me 1 word or 2 words that you say is a common thread that we've taken from this course. Anyone give me just in 1 or 2 words? Action, okay. To a mitzvah, okay. What about as a course as a whole?
Helping others.
Helping others, okay. Well-being, okay. Here's another one I think that's very significant: optimism. Always trust, belief, believing in God's goodness, essential goodness. So these are all common factors that lies in the very core of it all. And the Rebbe encouraged ourselves to step out of ourselves and our own limited view and to discover meaning not only within ourselves but everywhere and in everything and in everyone. Life is an endless quest for meaning and deeper purpose. And if we ask ourselves, what does God want from me in this particular situation? What is my mission? What is the deeper purpose with what is happening in my life at this time? And then if we look at it in that way, even the darkest and most difficult challenges in life will always be met with optimism. I remember the beginning of COVID, and everyone was stuck at home. As you know, I'm not going to relive that now. But I remember there was a meeting, of course a Zoom meeting, with a number of Chabad rabbis, and a senior Chabad rabbi, he got on and he says, let me tell you something, this is the greatest opportunity. You don't know that whatever you do now is going to have a tremendous impact in years down the line. And indeed, you know, it was very clear that while other organizations, you know, stopped everything and put everything on hold, this is when in Chabad, you know, some Chabad houses were opened during COVID. Some Chabad houses were able to reach out to people that have never shown up. And I could tell you, in our personal experience, there are very large number of individuals who would never have ended up in a Chabad house, but because we have reached out to them at that time, when no one else was, so they ended up becoming a very significant part of everything that we do. And you know, the same thing here, realizing that everything that happens is from God, and even things that seem challenging or difficult, if we have that in mind, which is, what does God want from me now? What is my mission? What's my purpose now? Everything changes. So, as Rebbe encouraged, optimism and trust in God, to step out of yourself and discover life's deeper meaning. We're going to watch one more video, and this is a woman who very tragically lost her parents, and she turned to the Rebbe for some guidance and from some help in the situation. Let's watch.
My father was nifter when I was still in college. That was in 1953, and 5 years later, my mother was nifter and Yud Aleph Nisan. So I wrote to the Rebbe a long, tearful letter, pouring out my sorrow at the loss of 2 parents and just being in my 20s. So I wrote the letter and I made an appointment to go see the Rebbe. I walked into the room. I just stood there and I cried and couldn't get a word out. The Rebbe just sat there looking at me very kindly He looked very compassionate, and he looked sad, reflecting my sadness. And then he said to me, ich weiß nicht, was ich kann mehr sagen, ich habe alles geschrieben in mein Brief. And I said, I never received a letter. And then we had a very beautiful Yechidus, which was based on what the letter was all about, but it was more wonderful because I received it in person. And then a few weeks later, I did receive the actual letter. All religious people, even non-Jews, believe that the creator of the world is infinite and incomprehensible. Not only did God create the world so many thousands of years ago, but it is our firm belief that God is also the continuous master of the world, who is constantly watching over it and taking care of everything and every individual. Obviously, it is impossible for a human being to understand the ways of God. All believers in God believe also in the survival of the soul. When the physical body ceases to function, the soul continues its existence not only as before, but even on a higher level. And here the Rebbe actually explained to me, and I thought it was beautiful. He knew that I had studied science in school because we had discussed that before. He said if you take a paper and you light a match to the paper is going to change form and shape. It won't be a paper anymore. It will be just ashes. So in that way we can understand that anything that has ever been created or existed will always remain. May God grant that you will carry on the conduct of your home with joy and gladness of heart. And if you feel your responsibilities with joy, as a parent, this is the greatest joy that you can bring to their souls. And this is also for you and your additional blessings, both physically and spiritually, with blessings and then the Rebbe's signature.
So obviously very moving video there. The Talmud tells us a story about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of the greatest sages who ever lived. And he was on his deathbed. And on his deathbed he said, I do not know which world awaits me. Now imagine here, one of the greatest sages that ever lived, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. A lot of the Torah that we have is thanks to him. And then he learned his entire life studying. He was a leader of the Jewish people during one of the most tragic times, the destruction of the temple. He says, I don't know where I'm going. So the Rebbe once discussed this idea in a talk in 1952, and he was actually very emotional when he discussed it. And he said, "How could it be that he didn't know? I mean, where does that leave us? I mean, if he doesn't know where he's going, then I know where I'm going, right?" And he said, it wasn't that he was a question. Am I going to this world? Or I'm going to that world. That wasn't the question. He said, I don't know because I never thought about it. He was so busy his entire life working on what he knew he has to accomplish, his mission that he has to do. It was never, where am I going? You know, even in the Jewish religious world, you hear always the terms that are always given, you know, which is saying, you know, you have to do a mitzvah because you want to go to Olam Haba, right? What's the term? Olam Haba. You hear that? The world to come. It's true, you know. Olam Haba is true. We believe in that. But when we're fulfilling a mitzvah, that's not why we're doing a mitzvah. We're doing a mitzvah because that's what God wants me to do in this world. And you know, many who have began studying the Chabad Hasidic teachings, who grew up in very, very orthodox backgrounds, and they, you know, and this is what they were taught their whole life. You have to do a mitzvah. You have to do a good Jew because you want to go to the world to come. And then they're taking this completely different approach, which is, no, We're doing it because this is what God has put me in this world to do. God has given me this mission in this world. It's a completely different approach. Yes, we'll get Olam Haba. We'll get that too, but that's not what our purpose is here. And so, the question is, what's your mission here? How can we help another Jew fulfill their personal mission, his infinite meaning and value and potential? If you take a figure of text 6:1, and I'm going to say again, almost a month ago was my 40th birthday, and I had tried that for my 40th birthday to get as many commitments for mitzvahs as possible from people in this community or others. So maybe you can help me to get others to do with these commitments. The Rebbe's mitzvah campaigns, lighting Shabbat candles, lighting Shabbat and festival candles, putting on tefillin each weekday, putting up kosher mezuzahs on doorways, studying Torah, giving charity, getting Jewish sacred books for one's home, eating kosher food, providing Jewish children with Jewish education, loving one's fellow Jews, and adapting the mitzvah of family purity. So if we could get to take out that each and every person here takes on one commitment from here, at least for the next year or the next month or the next week, one commitment with one of these areas, 10 areas, then that would be a great takeaway from this class. And even better, if we could get someone else to take on a commitment. Again, it doesn't need to be a big thing. It could be studying Torah, it could be studying the daily portion of Chumash every day, which is relatively short. Reading the daily Tehillim, daily Psalms, again, not too long, or the daily Tanya. Studying the Rambam Maimonides' daily mitzvah. If you could do a little bit more, to study a daily chapter of Maimonides. It goes through all the 613 mitzvahs. Or study all 3 chapters of Maimonides, which we finish in a year, and we're almost done actually. In about 2 weeks, we're going to conclude the annual cycle. To do something. Eating kosher food doesn't necessarily mean that I'm dropping everything. It could mean to take one step. What's one step in eating kosher that we could do? Maybe getting rid of one thing, or doing one thing more that we could do for eating kosher. Not necessarily are we talking about life-changing things. Just taking on one thing. Putting on, if someone could put on tefillin, if you can't do it every day, do it once a week. Putting up a mezuzah on the doorway. You can't put it on every doorway. Put it on the front door. If you could get it, if you already have it on the front door, put it on the other doorways. Giving tzedakah every day, by the way, very, very easy way to give tzedakah. If you don't, today people don't always carry change on them. You could download an app. It's called the Pushka app, and it's on my phone, so I can't show it. It goes to Kol Chabad, which is a charity for Israel, a Chabad charity in Israel. And you press a button, add $1, whatever it is, every day, however much you want. After it reaches whatever you set it to, $50 or whatever it is, it empties out and it goes to that tzedakah. So there's so many ways that you could do simple things that are life-changing and could really change who we are. Another great book, if anybody has not read this book, Rebbe. It's a great book. It talks about a lot of these, a lot of the things that the Rebbe has taught. This book is available to borrow if anybody wants from here. There's also a book which I don't have in front of me. Another great book. Some of you have read it, called Positivity Bias. It's another great book. And finally, I would say this. That we have an upcoming course, Decisions of Fate, in May. We're also going to have some 1 or 2 week courses for some upcoming Sundays, which will probably be just about some laws and stuff about Passover. And so, if you could bring a friend. What's the worst that will be? They'll have an hour and a half that they were bored, that they hated in their life. And what's the best that they can be? It can be something that's life-changing. So, sometimes it's uncomfortable. And we feel uncomfortable to ask a friend, come to Chabad, and, Chabad are very, very ultra-Orthodox, and, they don't, it's not for them. But think about it the other way and say, do I care for them? Do I want their life to be different? Do I want their life to be better? And when that's the approach, it's different. And ask them to do a mitzvah, and not, what are they going to think about me if I ask them to put a mezuzah on the door? But say, you're a Jew, you need a mezuzah on your door, right? So this is the right thing to do. So when we do this, we'll have our life will be different, and you can all be Chabad rabbis. I want to just make a quick announcement before we look at the final close-up key points video. Number one, tomorrow we have a special talk and lunch. Lunch and Learn is open to men and women by our very own David Kaufman, who has a fascinating story. His journey from pastor to observant Jew. It's a great story, fascinating story. Plus, we've got a free lunch as well. It's been on Facebook already.
I know, but when the day is up.
Can you record David's
We can't
talk?
make it.
We want you to come in person. If I put everything on Facebook, no one's going to want to come. We're going to host it actually in our house over there. So you could, it'll be a nice intimate setting. So that's going to be tomorrow, 12 o'clock. And then also a special announcement. We were able to confirm a special speaker that will be coming, God willing, in a month from now, a Sunday, April 14th, which is the Sunday before Passover. Passover is Monday night. This is the Sunday before that. One of the hostages from Gaza. Very, very rare to be able to have someone who actually goes out and speaks who is on that kind of experience. There are those that experienced October 7th. There are many of those that are speaking. But someone that's actually a hostage in Gaza. She is right now the only one that is actually speaking publicly, and she'll be coming here, God willing. Yes. It's going to be. We're not going to do it here because we're expecting a perhaps larger crowd. It's going to be at the Wildwood Community Center, April 14th at 3 o'clock p.m. So it's the middle of the day when shouldn't be anything going on then. You're going to see more. We don't have yet the form. We're going to get up a form about it. But I'm just letting you know about that. You'll be able to share with others and let them know. So that's going to be something very special. Of course, with the other events coming up, we have Purim coming up. We have next Sunday. Next Sunday here, 1 o'clock is the women's Hamantash Bake. Next Monday at 5 o'clock is the men's Hamantash Bake, which is a Savior Hamantash Bake. And then we have Purim, which is the 23rd at night. We have Purim reading at night. It's a Saturday night, so it's Havdalah and Megillah. Sunday morning, which is the 24th, we have a Megillah reading at 9 a.m., 12 o'clock for those who are in Ocala, in the Ocala Town Place Suites. And finally at 5 p.m. we're going to have the big party here. We're doing a Purim in Israel celebration. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So definitely don't miss Purim coming up and all the great activities and events. And here we go.
Lesson 6. Spiritual Heights. 1. The most effective path to self-improvement is to stop focusing on ourselves and to place others at the center of our attention. 2. When helping others, our focus should be on what they need rather than what we are able to do to help them. When we act with this mindset, we will be able to achieve beyond our own estimation. 3. A logical approach to advancing in Jewish observance is to deepen our understanding of Judaism and to subsequently act on it. The Rebbe advocated a leap-first approach of forging ahead with active Judaism. Doing a mitzvah, understanding and feeling then flow naturally from the action.
Okay, and we already showed this last week, but we'll put it up
Nowadays,
again.
people don't really get lost anymore. For the most part, society has mastered the art of navigation. But how do we navigate the next frontier? Sometimes we need new tools to navigate new terrain when it matters the most. What tools will you have to find your way? Introducing Decisions of Faith, your Jewish compass for navigating questions of medical ethics.
There's accredited as well.
Enroll today at myjli.com.